What is going on, team? Welcome to another episode of the Thrive Forever Fit Show. Today, I've got a special guest. If you listen to the show, you know this gentleman very, very well. His name is Tommy Baker. And today, he and I are going to mix it up over the topic of impact over influence. And as a special for my audience only, Tommy is going to talk about his newly released book, Hustlers and Seekers. He's going to tell you all about it, why he wrote it, some of the highlights. You're going to be able to pre-order it today before anybody else just by listening to this show. You can go to barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com and pre-order the book. It's called Hustlers and Seekers. I'll put that down in the show notes as well so you can easily find that. Tommy and I are going to get ready to blow you away, guys, with a little bit of talk about impact. Get ready. Here we go. Tommy Baker, what is up, my brother?
Jay Nixon, man. Thank you for having me.
Always the top-rated guest, the most requested guest. I don't even know what number this is. Nobody cares anymore. They know what's about to happen. So we might
Same
as well
for you on mine, man. I mean, I don't know how many times you've been on there, but it's always powerful, man.
I'll tell you guys why Tommy and I are doing this today. So I had this, I don't know, remember what I was doing. I had this idea about 30 days ago, about a month ago, and I started thinking about impact over influence. And it was, the idea came to me like because of social media. I mean, let's be honest, like you can fall down and land on a quote unquote influencer. But I started thinking a little deeper into that. And it was more about what if these influencers, and I'm not saying that some of them are not, but what if their sole purpose and sole mission was to make an impact instead of simply just influence? And I thought, okay, I can go on my own podcast and do a rant, but who would I rather have a sparring session with about this idea than you? And so that's when I reached out to you and I'm like, hey, bro, will you do this with me? And obviously you said yes. And that's why we're here today. So impact over influence. I'm going to shut up for a minute. I want to just get your thoughts on kind of just what I said. Like, we live in a world of influencers, but I'm not sure there's enough impactors.
100%, man. I love it. I love the concept and I love the idea. And the first thing that came up for me, what I wrote down was, what's the end? What's your end? Begin with the end in mind and then reverse engineer. And so when I think about influence, I don't know what that end is, right? Like, what is that leading to? What is that creating? Because you and I know that you could go on YouTube right now and there's tremendous amounts of quote unquote influence with people doing gags, and what does that mean? What does that lead to? I don't know. Maybe it's super fulfilling for them. Maybe they are helping people, alleviate through comedy. But my thing is always begin with the end in mind. And so if the end in mind actually is impact, well, then we have to reverse engineer. If that's the end in mind, then we have to look all the way back to the actions that we're doing today. And I think the dark side of just chasing influence is that you focus on the wrong things, that you actually focus on things that don't lead to impact. You focus on things that create ego scoreboards, how many likes, how many follows, how many, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so you wind up chasing things that don't have a lot of meaning. And when we chase things that don't have a lot of meaning, we chase more things to try to fill that space. And so I always start with where's your focus and where's your attention going? And so when I think of impact, to me, if that's the end, then I'm going to be able to say yes or no to this incredible invitation to come on this podcast. But if I'm hanging on this thread of influence and I don't know where that starts, where that ends, and what the purpose of that is, well, of course, I'm going to twerk on TikTok for an hour to Taylor Swift later today because it's influence, right?
Right. I think it goes back to that whole thing of like, social media, I think is an uber powerful tool. I think it's connected us in a way we've never been connected before. And we can talk about that at a different time, but that may be good and or bad, probably both. But I think it's gotten to a place of where we as a consumer, and even as someone who wants to make an impact, everything's really predicated on like clicks and hearts and emojis and like superficial conversations around like you said, like of someone dancing on a TikTok, and that may be a comedic relief for people, and they may get some time away from their quote unquote life that they're trying to hide from. But when I look at it from the direction that a lot of people go, this is where I get irritated. Now I'll give you the caveat to this. It's like the world that I live in, like the health and fitness and the weight loss and the transformation world, is about a $5 trillion business.
Yeah.
And so when I think about that, I say, okay, $5 trillion, that's a lot of money. We've never been more overweight. We've never been more out of shape. We've never been more confused or overwhelmed with what to do, how to do it, why to do it, who to follow. So in the
Yeah.
world that I live in, I see a lot of, for lack of a better term, bullshit from these influencers, because it is about clicks. It is about likes. It is about emojis. It is about hearts and followers and all that stuff. And it's not really about making a difference in someone's life on a really granular level, which is where it all starts, right? And so
Yes.
that's why I get pissed, and that's why I say, Tommy, I need to get on a podcast. I need to get this shit out of my system, because I get upset, and this is why I have to do this, right? And so, you're kind of in the same world, like teaching people how to business and write books and do all these other things. Like, are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, 100%, man. And like you, and the issue arises is when you're so deeply connected to that impact trail. I know we both get those messages, you and I, that are heart-wrenching, are deeply emotional, and they're this long because the person is telling us all of the changes and all of the shifts and all the transformations that happened through what we're doing here. And you and I don't have massive social media followings. We don't have blue check marks. We don't have, we're not posting, washboard abs and sweet tea supplements. And so it again, it's which would you rather have? And one of those messages, I know for me, that'll fuel me for, that has unlimited amounts of fuel.
Yeah.
But likes and comments and all of these things, all of these markers, it's empty. Why? One, but there's always going to be someone who has more likes. Two, there's no buy-in. What does it take to go like that? Right. And I know, like, even with this podcast, I know for you, you probably don't get that excited when people say, "Oh, Jay, that was so motivating," or "Jay, that was inspiring." I'm sure you like those messages, like me. But when people say, "That was so inspiring," and then I had that conversation with the person that I had to have the conversation with, and here's what happened, you and I light up, because we're actually going from influence and motivation and high fives to what are you doing out in the real world that's actually going to impact your life. And that's the end that I know you're chasing. I know that's the end that I'm chasing. And somebody listening, for you to chase that end as well, that's where you're going to find the most purpose, meaning, and fulfillment, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we get caught up in, as humans, we get caught up in other people's lives, right? We get caught up in this, like, that we'll call it the highlight reel or the movie of someone else's lives, and we almost live vicariously through that person instead of actually seeking to make or live our own impact. And that's where I think a lot of people get lost in the world of social media and YouTube and things like that, is they watch and they listen and they're following these influencers, right? They could probably list off like 10 or 12 of them that they follow. And then they can tell you everything about that person's life, but they can't tell you anything about their own life. They can't tell you anything like impactful or positive or whatever about their own lives. And what I want to get people to understand is, if you're enamored with that and you like that, and that's something important to you, you can live that same life. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility for you. But what's going to need to happen is you're going to have to stop being influenced by these people and start being impacted by them. And I think impact creates change. Influence simply just creates clicks and creates likes and maybe sells, like you said, a tee or some booty shorts or something like that. And that's just not what, that's not what I'm interested in. Cause again, I'll go back to that $5 trillion weight loss industry. That's ludicrous to think that we as humans are spending that much money on a problem, obesity. We'll just call it, we'll just blanket it with that. And we're not getting anywhere. That tells me there's a lot of influence going on and very little impact going on.
100%, man. And one of the things that I know that you'll resonate with, that I was telling someone the other day, is, you and I, we like to pull the curtains back on our industries, call them out where we see fit, et cetera, et cetera. And, in my space, our space, if you're going the influencer model, let's say, so I, like you, go deep in the trenches with my clients. It's not surface area, it's actually deep. And a lot of that depth is actually the emotional work of transformation, meaning we have these actions out here. We want this weight loss, we want this business, but deep down, you and I know the most important thing is the emotionality behind that. What are we feeling? What states are we in? Who do we have to forgive? How do we create powerful states? How do we get over imposter syndrome? That's like 90% of the game, right?
Right.
That's hard ass work.
Yeah.
It's not sunshine puppies and high fives, right? You and I know that. Like we're with people in the trenches during some difficult emotions that they're having to manage. That's impact. Influence, they actually don't want anything to do with that. Influence wants to be conveniently on the periphery of that and act like they're doing something like that, but they're really just posting a quote. Right. And a quote is not going to address the emotional needs of Karen and Sarah and Jeff and Steve and all of the people listening. Right. And so that's really the difference. Like, do you want to be inside of the trenches with someone on impact? Because impact is messy. Impact is difficult. Impact is emotional. Oh, and impact will make you and them feel more alive than anything else as well. Or do you want to be in the kiddie pool? In the kiddie pool, it's nice and comfy. Actually, right outside my place, they have this little these nice little chairs, but they're like inside of a
they're in the water. Yeah.
Yeah. But the kids go in there and there's probably some urine because that's where the kids go. So
right, it's easy.
You don't want to go in that shallow water because it's easy and it's surface area. And so that's ultimately what am I talking about here? What are we talking about? It's values, right? Yeah. So like during the last year and a half, which we've been so more plugged into the noise of influencers, I've completely shifted my filters. It's 100%. It's like for everyone. If I see somebody's story, if I see somebody's email opt-in, if I see somebody's content, IGTV video, my first question is this person aligned with my value system?
Right.
Because I do not care if they built a 7 or 8 figure business or they've been featured in 19 publications that they bought. That's not something that I'm interested in.
Agreed.
Or I might be, but not yet. First, I gotta have some sense of their values.
Right.
Right. Because if they made all their money on Miami Ponzi schemes, I'm not interested in that. So I don't know if any of my examples are making sense.
No, look, I'm with you 100%. Yeah.
So that's the filter. And that's a very intuitive thing too, because, I don't know the inner workings of every person, of course, but when you do the work, you can be pretty in tune. Like, is this guy or this gal, right, like, are they able to look at the camera, like, and you can like feel them? And are they being deeply authentic? Are they hiding something? Are they, et cetera, et cetera. And so when you use that as a filter, I've had to get rid of about 80 to 90% of the influential spaces. Yeah. I actually, maybe a year and a half. No, it was before the pandemic. I said, you know what? I'm going to give this one influencer a chance. I thought there might be about impact. And I was looking for some guidance, and I don't know how we stumbled across each other. And I said, let me just show up to this thing and let's see what happens. And the whole thing, and I was so disappointed, man, because I'd seen this person speak at an event called Thrive in Las Vegas. And I just had a sense that they were more about the impact. But that was a lot of candy wrapper. It was a lot of noise. And when we got on the call, it was zero connection, hard pitch, like he was there but not there. And then I was being haggled after the call about financing for his coaching program. It was just one of those experiences where you're just like, okay. So values. That's the thing that to me, it becomes the number one filter. And then everything else. And then if we're aligned in values, then let's go, because I know you're real. I know you're deep and you're connected, but you and I know there's only like 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, maybe 5 at most % who might share those similar values, at least between you and I. So you're not gonna get the numbers there, but you're gonna get the realness there, and ultimately that's what we're about.
So many things. Like I wrote down so many things. So first thing I want to say is this: if you're listening, you don't need to hard pitch somebody like Tommy or I, because if we're on the phone with you, we've already made a decision that we want to be on the phone with you. Just connect. You hard pitch me, and I'm gonna bail.
I know
you're not the all that person. Let me get whoever this was. If you're listening today, listen to me. All you would have had to do, bro, was make a real, legitimate, honest, authentic connection, and you'd have Thomas Baker as a client, and you probably have one of the best clients you've ever had in your life, because my man does the work. So if you ever get that chance again, don't fuck it up. Don't hard pitch him. I'm being serious. Am I right?
Yeah, and by the way, I love to be sold. You know, I got a fresh custom attire for my upcoming wedding, and I love the experience of somebody who's mastered their craft, who's so good at what they do, and who also is selling me at the higher fabric count and all of that stuff, but because it's absolutely in alignment, and they created a connection first. This guy looked me in the eye and said, tell me about you. Tell me about your vision.
Yes.
And from an authentic place. And so this person wasn't even able to do that. And trust me, just like you said, I came on for the connection.
You're ready to go.
Yeah, I came on for that. But I left with, and I remember, because I wrote about this, I left, he logged off on Zoom, and then the screen was reflecting back on me. And I just had this moment of, I asked the question, is this the industry that I want to be in?
Yeah.
That's honestly what came out. And I said, and you know, that's a deep question, especially when you love what you do, but to be so disappointed in something that it makes you question your industry. And obviously after working through that, I got more fire than ever, because again, it's when you see the contrast of something that you don't want to be and don't want to stand for, then that, if you're in alignment, it fuels your mission. But yeah, I asked that question, man. So it's an important reminder for all of us. And that goes for people that are close also, but also at the furthest extremes, because everything can ultimately influence your mindset in a way that's either getting you further from where you want to go or closer.
Let's bring that full circle. Let's go back to that word connection. So if you're somebody who's watching an influencer, or you're doing this, whatever you're looking, whatever it is in your life you're looking for, right? And this person has this influence over me somehow. Ask yourself that question: why am I, or how am I connected to this person? Like what's the connectionary piece, right? And I think that will tell you so much more than watching them dance around, or watching them eat a meal, or cook a meal, or do a bicep curl, or whatever it is. It's got to go deeper than that, because if you really want to do what Tommy was talking about earlier, like go into the trenches and actually do the work that's pivotal and transformational, if you don't have a connection, you're never going to get there. Right? So Tommy could have said yes to this guy, joined the program, blah, 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 blah. With that lack of connection, you wouldn't have got the most value out of that, right? And he, as a coach, hopefully, I mean, let's hope all coaches want this. He wouldn't have got what he needed to get out of that as well, because he wouldn't have been able to connect with you, and it would have been a total miss. So hats off to you for being in tune enough to say, this just isn't the right fit. You know what I mean? Because most people would have gotten bullied or kind of steamrolled into the next phase of, hey, let's get your financing going for you. You're like, wait a minute, bro. Like that, you know what I mean? Like it's just always too much. And I think an important thing to look at too with influencers is, I started thinking about this the other day. I was having a conversation with somebody, and they were asking me like, well, kind of around the same topic, but look at longevity. If you look back at any of Tommy's stuff, you're going to see a consistency over time that cannot be, it can't be, there's no holes in it. Look back, do some back tracking on, and if you'll see somebody who like they're selling insurance one week, the next week they're selling weight loss, the next month, 2 years ago you'll start to find inconsistencies and incongruencies. That tells you all you need to know. If you look back at any of my stuff for the last 10, I saw a post that I put up 10 years ago, and it was literally the same shit I'm talking about today. The same stuff. I'm like,
yeah, man.
Yeah, and you're the same way. And so I'm not hyping Tommy Baker and Jay Nixon here. I'm just saying there's models of consistency. There's some influencers that 2 years ago, everybody would have said they're on the biggest stages. They're with Robbins. They're with blah, 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 blah. Guess where they are now? They're gone.
Yeah, man.
Gone. You can't
Yeah.
find, they're gone.
Yeah. Like Trent Shelton says, words lie, actions can lie at times too. Consistency tells the truth.
Always.
And, you know, when I announced recently my new book, and that's not just like a plug.
No, it's a good, we're going to get there. So let's go.
No, it was just very meaningful. Somebody who's seen me operate for about the last 10 years. One of my favorite messages was, he's like, just the way he said it, he's like, I've seen you shown up for a decade, and I had no idea that this was coming out, and I just want to let you know that you're the most consistent person I've ever met. Yeah. And that's, you know, consistency is that's when you know it's about impact, because you and I, there's no way that you would still be doing what you're doing if it wasn't about impact, right? I mean, we would have quit. We would have jumped onto the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And that's the thing with influence. You're always chasing the upcoming trend, right? Over and over. And even at a micro level, you know, people keep telling me, you got to do Instagram reels, engagement. I want to do Instagram reels, man. I want to get on video and speak to your heart. And I don't think you could do that in the way that I've seen it so far. The reel, that's not my path for that at the highest expression. So I'm not going to do something just because the algorithm is rewarding something like that. And so it happens in the micro, but it also happens with the macro actions. But I love that about consistency. Like, look at these people track record, go all the way back, you know, even a quick Google search. I had somebody on my podcast recently, and I did a Google search, and there was some dicey stuff on there. And, you know, you never know who's posting that or how it comes, but it's out there, right? So it's important to look at that stuff. Otherwise, again, you know, you talked about connection. What creates connection? Well, it's trust, right? You can't have connection without trust, and you can't have transformation without trust. You got to be able to trust the person in front of you. If you're my coach and I don't trust you, then everything you say is going to be filtered through this hazy lens. And I'll be like, I don't know about this guy. But it's like, if I got Jay Nixon, he says, you got to run 3 miles today because that's part of our program. You bet your ass I'm going to be crushing those 3 miles. Yeah. Let's go.
I'm the same way. I want to transition into the new book because I'm super stoked about it. And I don't know who sent you that message, but I want to have their number because it's bullshit. Because I felt like I should have. I felt like I said
you
that.
say it all the time,
and they got credit, and I'm pissed. I'm just joking. I want to talk about quotes for a second and memes and like the things we see on social media. This is just more for me than anybody else. If you want to keep listening, guys, keep listening. When I write a quote or I post a quote, it's because it made me think deeper than the quote, right? Like I never post something. It's like, oh, this is catchy or cliche or whatever. I was saying this to somebody just the other day. It's like, if you ever see me use somebody's quote or say, hey, I like this, it's because that thing, you know what it was? They were asking me like what book I'm reading and how long it takes me to read a book. And I'm like, it takes me forever to read a book. And I'll tell you why. Because when I'm reading, I get enamored with sentences or
I love that
phrase or just a column of, you know, whatever. And I don't just read through it. If it enamors me and it pauses me, then I ask myself a series of questions. So a lot of times I'll be reading or listening and I'll be like, oh, here we go. And I write it down. And then I start thinking like, what does that really mean? Like, what does that mean to me? Like, as a human, like me
Yeah.
individually, Jay Nixon, what might it have meant to me before, and what might it mean to me once I grow and evolve into the human that I want to be? And I
Yeah.
use quotes as different ways to evolve my perspective on life. And so I would challenge everyone listening to don't just get caught up in the cliche of like, we didn't come this far to only come this far. Like, I mean, okay, me either. Let's go. Right. Like, I like it, but like, there's more, you got to have more depth. Right. And so, I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, what's your idea around that?
Yeah. I mean, that's so in line with, I'm a total nerd and I collect quotes, right?
Me
And
too.
for the same exact reason that you do, is that because something that, Thoreau or Emerson or God knows anybody said that just, a quote is powerful because it strikes deep in the heart.
Right.
The problem with social media is that you just looked at 3 puppies before that quote and your mind stuck on how cute little Rudy was. And so
Yeah.
you can't really think straight. So it loses its depth. But on what you're talking about, I think there's so much value. So in consumption in general, one, my golden rule is less is more.
Yep.
The second, the other rules is to limit your inputs wisely. And if you do this, if you're filtering by values, if you're filtering by, is this person leading a life that's exciting to me internally and externally? Is this person, et cetera, then you're going to cut away a lot of the noise. And so you won't have that many inputs left. And then with those inputs, that's the moment that when Jay Nixon posts a quote, you actually pay attention because you filtered that out. And that quote, because you're aligned with him, is probably going to give you an insight or a spark that's much different than if you're just scrolling aimlessly. So I completely agree, man. And I think we're in this weird conundrum. I know I am in, consider myself a very deep person, yet there's all of these tools that are designed to be shallow. And so it's like, I'm always struggling with this, right? It's like my captions on Instagram are this damn long.
Right.
And people are always like, they're too long. And I say, I'm too, it's like, I can't say it in a sentence. So I'm going to put it out. And by the way, what I'm doing is incorrect for the algorithm,
Right.
right? Gary Vee would say, no, you have to morph everything you're doing to the algorithm. Right. But that doesn't jive with me. However, and here's the big thing about impact, influence, and all this stuff that we're talking about. You're going to attract who you are at the deepest level. So I may have these long ass, deep philosophical things. You have your things, your quotes, et cetera. We're going to attract people who are into that. Right. Like you and I are not going to get the person who's following XYZ influencer who, has pivoted 9 times. Right. And who, his last 9 posts have been about, conspiracy theories and mass politics. Like, it's just going to be a different crowd. And so I think that's also the benefit. Like Kevin Kelly wrote an essay. He was the editor-in-chief of Wired magazine, called 1,000 True Fans. And 1,000 true fans, what he's talking about is exactly what we're talking about. He's saying, listen, you're not for everyone. And if you try to be for everyone, you're going to get to no one. And most people are wasting their time trying to find these massive audiences. All you need to have like a successful life and business, whether you're an artist, creative, band, music, entrepreneur, blogger for moms, all you need is 1,000 true fans. Yeah. And in a world that has 5 billion people connected, that's a really small number. So I guess that's a long way of coming back around from your quote question, is that when you go deep, when you untangle things, you're going to attract people that are absolutely in alignment with you. And that's why you and I have been able to stay in the game for the decades that, the time that we have. Yeah. Because it's one thing for us to be eternally fulfilled with our stuff. But if we were cultivating a tribe that weren't interested in that at all, et cetera, we wouldn't get those messages, et cetera. So you'll attract who you are. And by the way, this goes for everything, right? Some people are so good with comedy, like, and that's their slant with their content and their stuff. And it's coming from a deep place because it's like their thing, be who you are at the deepest level. I'm a total philosophical nerd. I geek out. I'm like you. I will read sentences 5 times over. I'm not going to attract someone who, whose favorite app is Blinklist and they listen to books in 3.5 minutes. I probably not. And that's a good thing.
I don't even know what that app is, so I won't be attracting those people. While you're sitting there, I was just thinking, like, I can't, nor would I ever want to compete with the TikTok dance or the Instagram. I'm in the fitness space, right? Like, I told Lori the other day, I'm like, hey, do I put the booty shorts on and go to work? And she's like, there's not a chance in hell you're doing that. And I'm like, thank God. I thought she was going to green light me, and then I was going to have to make a decision. But I'm joking. Yes. Like, I can't compete with that. Like, that's not, you know what I mean? Like, nor do I want to, nor do I have to, right? It's like you said, the 1,000 true fans. I want to touch on one thing, and then I want to get onto this book because I'm stoked to hear about it. Again, this is more for me than anybody else. What Tommy basically said, I'm going to condense down in a very easily to use format for you guys.
I need that because I'm a rambler.
No, I think what you said was gold, and I want people to hear it.
You're going to make me a quote. You're going to make the quote right now.
He's talking about inputs, right? Auditing your inputs. It's a simple thing. So audit your inputs quickly and then make a decision. Is it something I can implement, or is it something I need to delete? Oftentimes, we don't do either of those. We just consume. And then we get so overwhelmed, we don't know what to do next. So become a master at auditing your inputs. And when you audit an input that you need to delete, stop consuming that input. When you find an input that is implementable, that's an input you want to go back to, right? And that's what Tommy said earlier. He's had to remove, quote unquote, several influencers because he made the quick decision that is a deletable influence. I'm not going to implement. So why not get rid of it? What we do as humans is we keep consuming things that give us no value. And then we fill those spaces up, and there's no room left for the things that do bring us value. It's like if you're a news watcher, you're consuming, you're filling yourself up with things of very little to no value. And then you get confused as to why you can't find things of value that you're happy and positive and healthy about. Audit input, implement, or delete quickly. See, you can hang up right now. Just go away. I just gave you the gold.
That's the gold. Hey, quick on that note.
Do it.
There's this quote that I just wanted to share from Austin Kleon. He writes these kind of very.
I was about to say, damn well nobody knows who Austin Kleon is, but you, and so I need a little backstory.
Okay, so he writes this. It's exactly what we're talking about, and he has this thing, and it says, "Who are you trying to impress? If you get lucky one day, and a big audience shows up for what you do, chances are there will only be a handful of people whose opinion really means anything to you. So you might as well identify those people now, if you haven't, and write for them." And he says write, but create for them, and keep creating for them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's just a reminder that this constant chasing of more, that's actually taking us away from the path that's right in front of us. So that just came up, but I love that about the inputs, and do it immediately, by the way.
Yeah.
Sometimes this happened to me. Sometimes, like, I'll tell Taylor, I'm like, man, I just saw this message, and I'm like, here's another one. So the other day I was about to work out. No, I was working out, actually. So that's my sanctuary time. And I wanted to post a little thing real quick. I don't know. I post a lot of sunrises and stuff like that. I'm convinced Instagram's messing with us, and they're log jamming. They're lag jamming like the loading times, and you know what I mean? Just so we stay on longer. And so I don't know what happened. Usually I could go straight to stories. This time it didn't let me. And the first thing I see was, it was either a Biden thing or a Trump thing, but I knew it was political. And dude, I couldn't even tell you what the post was, but my subconscious saw it. So my subconscious saw it before I consciously saw it, and then I X'd out. Even that thing, it took me away from as as dumb as it sounds, it took me away from the workout flow that I was in. Just that, right? And what I should have done was identify who that person was and just immediately delete them, immediately mute them, because I personally, so I don't, I got a politic-free feed, right? Like I don't care what side you're on, but if you're consistently raging about a certain issue, I'm gonna move on from that, because that's not gonna add any intellectual curiosity to me. It's not gonna do anything. I'll love to have a conversation over dinner or drinks, but not on social media. Right. So that's just an example. Even a small, tiny input, a fraction of a second, can take you out of the mindset that you were in before.
Let's talk about why really quick. You know me, I'm a nerd when it comes to the brain. So what Tommy just described was, he saw that, right? He saw the word politics, Trump, Biden, something that triggered political in his brain, in his subconscious brain. His reticular activating system immediately went to work to bring up every emotion he's ever felt around politics, because it's, and those aren't good emotions for 90. No, I know for me, frustration. You, not
instant frustration.
So it wasn't that he's even interested in that, but his brain read the words. It's like he said, his subconscious brain saw it before he did, and then immediately went to work to bring him more of that. And that created probably a flood of like negative emotion.
Yeah. And I didn't bounce back. I had a good workout, but I was having a great workout.
Guys, this happens to you on a daily, moment to moment to moment basis. This is why I'm consistently raging about, what are you consuming? I don't care if you think it's innocuous. It's not going to be a big deal. It's a big deal, because your brain is designed to do shit that you don't even know it's doing, or you'd be dead, right? You breathe without thinking about breathing, right? Your body's designed in a certain way that your recall of the way those thoughts trigger in you, it goes back. We'll stop here after this. Your body doesn't know if it's the first time you've seen that or if it's the 100th time. It doesn't remember. It doesn't know if it's actually the accident that you're remembering or the actual physical accident you're experiencing. You release the same endorphins, the same chemicals, the same everything. So that's happening to if it's happened to Tommy, it's happening to you. I guarantee you. So be aware of that.
Yeah, and I learned my lesson, man, and I continue to learn my lesson. And so
we all do. I'm the same way. I get caught in that same hamster.
Yeah, make mute your best friend. Like the whole theme of that was, if you get triggered once by it, you're probably going to get triggered again by it. And if it
go back.
And emotional triggers, they take us away from the state. They take us away from the presence, right? Like, thank God I had already created and written that morning. Otherwise, it probably would have been affected. Yep. And so, but even that workout, even 10%, is that worth it? Is that worth it to go down that? So make mute your best friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get to some juice now. Let's get to the hustlers and seekers of the world. So for those of you guys that, I mean, you've heard us rambling, Tommy just released a new book. It's available for pre-order. You will go and pre-order this book. I've already done it. I'll send you my receipt if you need to see it. Already pre-ordered it. I'm pumped and stoked about it. So just start from scratch. Why, what, who, all the things. What is it? Why is it?
Love it.
Let's go. And I'm going to interject some shit along the way. You just keep going. You just tell me.
No, 100%, man. So okay. So in the personal growth world, what I noticed, and obviously this has been my journey. Nobody writes a book. Everybody writes a book to, usually solve their own problem first and really get that in a cemented way that that it's like tangible. And for me, here's what I've seen, and everybody can relate, right? In the personal growth and business and live your best life space, there's two camps. There's the camp of you gotta grind all day. You gotta triple down. You gotta have your side hustle. You gotta dream bigger. You gotta crush it. You gotta be ambitious. You gotta, put yourself on the line, go all in, whatever it takes attitude, ruthless ambition. We'll call that hustle for convenience. And then there's the other side, which says, you know what, Jay and Tommy, that's not what life's about. You got to take a step back. You got to detach. You got to do some nice self-care routines. You got to take time for yourself. You got to unplug. You got to go to the beautiful red rocks of Sedona, maybe do a couple sessions with Anahata Ananda. You gotta let go and you gotta release. And so what I realized along the way is that a lot of people were having trouble with this kind of paradox that says, work ethic is important, but then you have to surrender. You got to take action, but then you got to take a step back. You got to perform at your best, but then you got to be able to shut it down. Yeah. And that's the and ultimately the number one question that I get a lot, Jay, which I'm sure you get, is, how do I know it's time to step on the gas, and how do I know it's time to let go?
It's kind of the balance question, right?
Yeah. Or how do I chase a vision without being like desperate, like, in that frantic state? Or here's another one. How can I balance being grateful for what I have today, yet still have a desire for more? Yeah. And so that's kind of the ethos that the book was built around, because, when I go to Barnes and Noble, I look to my left, crush it, squeeze out every minute of the workday, be your best self, 10X rule by Grant Cardone, Gary Vee. And then I look to my right, the universe has your back, self-care is the most important thing, the surrender experiment. And I'm like, oh my God, what do we do?
Right. Beautiful.
Yeah. So that's the ethos of the book. And I've been working hard at it for about 2.5 years. And it is available for pure. Jay, are you a hustler? Are you a seeker, man? What are you?
I'm both, bro. I think
you've merged both worlds. That's the end result, that everybody has their sweet spot. You have your sweet spot. I have my sweet spot. Mary has her sweet spot of these two worlds, and everybody has to find their unique ingredient for both, because guess what? Obviously work ethic is to bring a dream to life. Like, we're hardwired to design, to set, and to strive for goals. You and I are hardwired. It's what kept us alive, to have hope that tomorrow is going to be a little bit better than today. A little bit better might be I make $2,000 more this month, I lose a little bit of weight, or I go to Mars, whatever it may be. Right. And then we're also hardwired to go inside and get to know who are we really. And that's when you deal with the past and maybe trauma and hurt, and let all of that go. And so that's, both are required for what I call a life well lived. And so I consider you someone, like I when I'm writing the book, like I'm constantly thinking, like, who are the people that I know who've been able to merge both worlds in a really real way, right? Because there's a downside to each world. By the way, I'm going on a huge rant here.
No, so I love it. I'm shaking my head because I'm agreeing with you 100%. Yeah. Yes.
So there's a downside, right? Obviously, too much work ethic, too much achievement that's striving for can lead to like a feeling of, one, it's never enough, or constantly lack, or just mental, physical, and emotional burnout. And then too much seeking, though, also has a really big downside, which is, and you and I know this, Jay, it's people that can regurgitate all the principles and, the one-liners of Rumi, but, they're still in their parents' basement, or, and that's obviously an exaggeration, but, or they're so obsessed with the inner work that they're actually using it as an avoidance mechanism to not bring something to life, whether that's a goal or a desire or an art project, whatever it may be. And so that's the ethos of the book. We all have an inner hustler. We all have an inner seeker. How do they coalesce? How do they thrive with one another?
Love that, dude. I'm so stoked to read this. And this sounds to me like this could be a business book. This could be a relationship book. This could be a family book. This could be a financial book. This could be a lot of different things for a lot of different people. And so I'm super stoked about it. I just keep thinking about this. So yesterday I had a coaching call, and one of my clients, Nadine, asked, how do I know if I'm being lazy or if I'm practicing self-care? And I think this kind of hits home for me. When you started talking about this, I was kind of like, the question, if I put it into this terminology, is how does Nadine know if she's moving too far away from the hustler, right, and too deep into the seeker, and then how does she get back out of that to find that dichotomy in the middle? And I think that's a question that it comes up a lot in my world, is like, a lot of people, I get this question as well. I'm going to ask this, and I want you to kind of expand on your thoughts. And maybe just read a chapter for the book and we'll all listen. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Don't do that. People always say balance, right? I get this balance question. They're like, Jay, when I go all in on this and then I neglect everything else.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that shit ain't going to work long-term, right? Like we got to figure that out. And sometimes I go all in on my weight loss and I neglect my family. I neglect my job. I neglect my this. I neglect my that. And people are having a hard time understanding that there's there's a synergy of all the things that you need to
Yes.
find, right? What would
That's
you
the word,
say?
synergy. I love that. I use that word in the book. That's what we're talking about.
What would you say to that? Like, without, giving it too much, it's like when someone says that, like, whenever I get so far consumed on the hustle that everything else just goes to hell in a handbasket, or I get so far consumed on the sit in the corner and meditate and just hope the hell everything works out that I got no hustle left in me.
Yeah.
Do you see that?
Oh, 100%, 100%. And we've all done that.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. So you'll never last. So we're talking about sustainability, you and I and everybody listening. You don't just want a hack that's going to work for a week or a month. You want to be in this game for a long while. And that's when you're to sustain, you got to feed both of these. So if you just feed, like, how many times have we seen the person who just feeds the hustler and they go crazy on this maniacal quest and they either burn out before they get there, or they get there and they're so damn empty because they never spend time doing any of these things, right? Or on the flip side, like I said earlier, the seeker who's been to 4 Burning Mans, does ayahuasca every 4th weekend, and has the codes to the cheat codes of life's existence, but again, they're at Home Depot still. So it's and ultimately, you said the right word, which is synergy, which is we have to find our unique mix of both. And that's it. The book is definitely not a template, right? Because a lot of people, self-help, you got to do a template.
Right.
No.
Tommy, tell me what to do.
Exactly. No. And it's like, how could I tell you what to do? This is going to evolve based on who you are and what season you're in. My argument is you might have a season of life where, yeah, you got to 80% of the time, you got to get cranking. Let's go. Yep. Like, stop sitting back. This is the season to grow. This is the season that I've been in, because when you're creating a book, like you got to go. Like, there's no time to like sit back. But then you don't go too far down that scale. You still leave 20% of that time to work on yourself, to disconnect, to turn the laptop off, to go for a 3-hour hike with the dogs. Like, all of that stuff is as important. And we know law of diminishing returns, which is a huge concept in the book, is like, hustle and work ethic work until not only do they stop working, but they actually start working against us. So we've all put that midnight oil for another 3 hours, and we looked at our work the next day and we're like, who wrote this crap? Because this is horrible. I'm not even going to use any of that. Those 3 hours should have been spent with my family or disconnecting or on a hike with the dogs, because then I would have come back more clear. So ultimately, and this is what I said to my group the other day, it's like, what's more productive? A 3-hour focused session on your business, or a 3-hour time period where you take a hot bath, a nap, and read a novel? And the answer is, it depends.
Both, right?
They both can be, depending on if you're coming off an intense hustle day or week, et cetera, et cetera. It's better for you to recharge and actually stop thinking about work. It's going to lead to better performance, by the way. Totally. And then on the flip side, if you're somebody who's lost in the noise and just so deep into the seeking, it's time to like, let's do this. Like, you've been figuring yourself out now for 7 years. Like, are we going to do something? So
take some action.
Yeah. Like, let's go. And so, I speak passionately about this because I've been that person too. You know me. I've been full to the brim with hustle energy. I remember having a conversation with my staff when I had my fitness business, and they were like, Tommy, tomorrow's 4th of July. People don't like work. They're not like, we should, for the employees, like, we should have the day off, right? And I remember literally looking at a quote on the wall that said something like "crush your competition," and I was like, okay. And then I remember being, at my 3rd Buddhist retreat and loving all the insights, but like, at some point I want to talk about something let's talk about something else. And so I've been that person. So in the book, I give myself liberty to make fun of both of these tribes because I've been so deep in both of these tribes.
Me too. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Like, I would have said,
I know you get it.
I would have said tomorrow's the 4th of July, and they would have been like, yeah, I can see you tomorrow. Right. There's gonna be fireworks right here with you going to work.
I know. But you're so good at this because you are so committed. You're so consistent. You're always the same, Jay,
Yeah.
no matter what. I've never seen you like out of your element. And then, unless we have too many Mai Tais, which is foreshadowing. But then like you can disconnect and you can unplug and you can have a 3-hour deep conversation and you can be in nature and like without being like, I got to check this thing. Right. Yeah. If we go back to influencers, I had a lunch once with an influencer. It might as well have been like a reality TV show. Cause it's like everything that happened, they were just like, the food was coming. So they put their phone out and then this happened and they put their phone out. And I'm like, what are we doing here? Yeah, this is horrible.
Happening? You could have done it without me.
I know. And that's the always on mentality. It's like that everybody's going to forget about me if I'm not always on. And the reason why now is the time for a book like this is because we're all feeling the pressure of being always on and getting it done today. Right. And so we have to find that synergy. And that's the word, synergy. Can you find the synergy?
Something I want to hit on before we wrap this up is you said something so pivotal and so that needs to be re-said. Everybody is in this, tell me exactly what to do and I'll follow it to a T, right?
Yeah.
What Tommy's simply talking about is your life, right? And your life is going to go through phases and stages and evolutions and things like that. And it's finding the synergy of the hustler and the seeker, but also knowing that those percentages, let's just say we're looking at a pie chart, it's not always going to be the same. There's going to be places and spaces in your life where there's more shift to being a hustler or there's more shift to being a seeker. And that can change oftentimes rapidly, depending on what you're doing, why you're doing it, and the purpose behind who you are. And I think a lot of this has to do with like self-awareness. Like that's what I think about when I hear you talking. I'm like, the more self-aware I've become, because I've been just like you, like I've been in the trenches of like, I'll give you guys a quick story. I used to be the kind of guy. So I was living in Texas at the time. I was managing the largest supplement company in the country. We would have these in Texas and Dallas. If it snows or ices, the whole city shuts down. Like they're not ready for it. Jay Nixon goes to work. I remember vividly several times. They would call me like, "Hey, the roads are closed. We can't go to work." You have to remember, we managed the entire country. So I had people in California waiting on a phone call. I got my ass in my car and I'm not saying this is intelligent. I was so deep in the hustler mentality. I drove to, I was the only car on the road. I mean, literally banking from bank to bank, just bouncing off of curbs. But I went to work. I also went to the gym after work and was pissed that they weren't open. That's why that's one of the reasons I own I'm not lying. It's one of the reasons I own a gym today. I sat in the parking lot one day of Lifetime Fitness in Grapevine, Texas, and they were closed because of an ice storm. And I'm like, I'm gonna have a gym someday. We ain't ever closing.
Damn, I love that, man.
But that's too extreme, right? Don't do that. And that's what Tommy's talking about. I needed a little more seeker in my life at that time. I needed a little more of like, and so my self-awareness as it's grown, would I do that same thing today? God, I'd probably want to go to work because I love to work, but I would be evolved enough to say, let's take, hey man, it's okay. Let's spend a day just doing something other than that. So know that you're going to grow and evolve. And just like Tommy said, we've both been on both ends of the spectrum. I'm so excited about this book, brother. Go ahead and say whatever you're going to say based on that. And then tell us how, I've already got my copy. You don't need to tell me shit. How can I get this? How can people order this?
Always have a fresh stack for you as well.
I know.
Yeah. And on that note, and typically, somebody who's really embodied that hustler's ethos for a very long time, they need to start with more. They need to that's where they need to go. They need to go into more seeking. And we see this all the time, right? It's why consciousness has exploded and why, I rarely watch TV, but like when we watch Billions TV show, they're talking about, they have a life coach there and they did plant medicine and they have all of these seeking type of things. because we're recognizing that one of too many is not working. And then the seekers, they need to, it's time. It's, I know you've gone to 11 personal growth retreats in the last 24 months, but now is really the time to take that idea and make it something real. Otherwise, you're going to miss out. And that's the thing, that growth happens at the intersection of these two, right? The ultimate growth happens at the intersection of these two. So I could ramble on for ages just because it's so new and I'm so excited.
Yeah,
And this is
I'm
the first time I'm
excited
talking
about it.
publicly about it, on another platform.
Awesome.
Anyways, yes, to grab it, it's available on Amazon for pre-order. It's free. The pre-order, you don't get charged until release date, and the price goes down, so no cost to you. But if you like this conversation, if you've heard me before on here, you're one of Jay's people, I think you're gonna really like it. It's got what I feel are some nice laugh out loud moments. Not everybody might share my sense of humor. My editor was like, she kept saying like she was kind of like taking out some of the jokes, and I'm like, no, we got to bring that back in, because I think that this conversation, it should be a fun experience. So available on Amazon to pre-order free today, and available on Barnes and Noble to pre-order. I think Barnes and Noble does charge you, but it'll go down as the launch comes. But those are the best two places.
Any idea on when the actual physical copies will start being sent out?
Yeah, so it's about, right now it's about mid-September. So we're early. I know we're early, and there's, with books, it's like, I'll just wait till mid-September. Again, if this conversation gave you any value, and I know Jay, you're amazing. Your tribe is amazing, by the way. You guys listening already, what you've done for some of my prior books has been above and beyond. And I just got to say, thank you, Jay, for that.
If you're listening, we take action in the moment of inspiration. We don't wait, right? September's coming, whether we order the book now or not. Order the book. I've already ordered mine. That way in September, it just shows up to the house, and it's one less thing I have to think about. And it's something that I'm setting myself up for success in the future. So if you want to set yourself up for success in the future, and you want to be like we are, like you already are, I know you are. Most of you guys are already ordering it right now. We take action in the moment of inspiration, and I'm inspired right now. I'm probably gonna go order another copy, just because that's what I have to do. But you know what I'm saying? Like, go order the book, guys. It's for two reasons. I believe in supporting people that I care about, that I admire, and Tommy is one of those people for me. And I can guarantee, if you know anything about me, you guys know this, I don't promote anything. Very rarely do I even have another human on my podcast, because I have a disdain for nonsense, and I don't trust that many people to not bring nonsense into my world and or your world. So the fact that he's here and talking about this book means it is a 100% guarantee home run. And here's another thing I can guarantee you. In September, once we get the books and we get to read them, Tommy will come back on, and we will have a deeper dive conversation.
100%.
You guys can ask questions. You guys can get involved. We might even do a damn Zoom where I'll bring you on and allow you to ask the question live. Well, if you're in my private group, we'll for sure do that. I'm blocking Tommy down to a lot of shit he has not agreed to right now.
No, I'm all in on
so
that.
I need you guys.
Your tribe's amazing, man. Like I do so many things like this, and your tribe, like, engaged, active, connected, DMing, doing all of the things.
They know good people.
Well, that's the difference, right, between influence and impact. Like, I'm always impressed, but never surprised, because it's like, I'm always like, if I don't know that they're your people, I'm like, wow, that's such a thoughtful and deep message. And then I go to like their Instagram, and it's like, followed by Jay Nixon. I'm like, exactly.
You know what? We need more of that in the world, right? I talk about this to my team all the time. It's that ripple effect, right? And when you start to get inside of those ripples, like it grows and evolves and expands. And then awesomeness is not meant to be, abundance is not meant to be individually consumed. And when we do things like we're talking about today, when we support somebody who's written a book that I can tell you right now, I don't even have to buy this book. I can just call Tommy and be like, tell me about it, right? Tell me about the book. Like we're going to have that conversation, right? I'm
Yeah.
excited to read this. I want to, because like I said, you know how long it's going to take me to read this book? Probably 3 months, because I'm going to read chapter 1 and be like, holy shit. And I'm going to write it down. I'm probably going to text Tommy. He's going to be like, stop texting me. And I'll be like, all right, I'll read
That's
it.
amazing.
I'll write this down. But that's just what I do. And that's what I'm excited about. And so, brother, I just want to say, first and foremost, I'm proud of you. You don't need to hear that. I know you already knew it. But your consistency, it's one of the things I talk about you. If somebody said, describe Tommy Baker to me in 3 words, one of those would just have to be consistency, because it's like that. Whoever sent you that note, spot on. Like, you are consistent to a fault. And it's amazing, and we need more of that in the world. And so I'm proud of you, man. I'm proud to have
Thank you so much, man.
in my circle as somebody I call a friend. And thank you for doing this with me today, because I couldn't have done this myself with the same impact, no pun intended. But that's why I wanted to
Hell
have you on,
yeah.
because I knew you'd bring another element to this. And so thank you, brother, for spending the time with us today. And we love you, and we're super proud of you, man. We can't wait to see this book just chart up to the highest levels.
Always honored, always humble. Thank you so much. Thank you to the whole Thrive tribe. Thank you for having me, Jay. It means the world.
All right, my man. After this comes out, we are going to spend some time together in person. So I'm excited about that. I'll see you soon.
Yeah.